Okay, stop. Just stop right there. Before we even get into the title of today's deep dive, I need to issue a warning.
A warning.
A serious one. If you are currently sitting there, maybe browsing travel sites on your second monitor, looking for a place with pristine white sand beaches, all-inclusive buffets where you can eat unlimited shrimp cocktail, and easy air-conditioned airport transfers, you need to stop listening to this right now.
It is a very aggressive start. But you're right. You are absolutely right. If that is what you're looking for, this is the wrong deep dive for you.
It really is.
In fact, if you go to the place we are discussing today with those exact expectations, you will probably be on the first flight back home.
I'm serious. We are not talking about the Dominican Republic today. That is like the #1 confusion we have to clear up immediately.
Right. Not the same place at all.
We are talking about Dominica, Dominica, the nature island.
Yeah.
And based on the stack of sources we have for today, specifically a really, really detailed breakdown from May 2026, this place is not a vacation.
It's interesting you make that distinction immediately. I was thinking the same thing looking at the source material. There seems to be this core thesis emerging, and it's a philosophical one as much as it is a logistical one.
Oh, go on.
There is a fundamental difference between a vacation and a trip.
Oh, I love that distinction. Let's unpack that because I think we use those words interchangeably, but they really, really aren't the same thing, are they?
They are opposites in many ways. A vacation is for resting. It's for recovery. It's for, lowering your heart rate, turning off your brain.
Yeah, reading a paperback by a pool.
Exactly. Reading a paperback by a pool while someone brings you a drink with a little umbrella in it. The whole goal of a vacation is to return to your life exactly as you were, just, slightly more rested.
And a trip.
A trip is for changing. A trip challenges you. It involves friction, and the sources are very clear on this. Dominica is arguably the worst place in the entire Caribbean for a vacation. It is hard work, but it might just be the absolute best place for a trip.
Exactly. The vibe set in these 2026 reports is just, it's wild. They describe it as the Caribbean before humans showed up. One source used the analogy that it's Jurassic Park without the dinosaurs. Mostly.
That's a comforting qualifier, isn't it? But it's accurate. Geologically, it is the youngest island in the Lesser Antilles.
Okay, so what does that mean in practical terms?
It means it's still jagged, it's still evolving, the landscape hasn't been smoothed over by millions of years of erosion or, for that matter, mass tourism. It's raw.
Right. And that sets the scene perfectly for what we're looking at today. We have this incredibly detailed logistical and experiential breakdown from May 2026, and it covers everything. The good, which is mind-blowing stuff like sperm whales and epic hiking.
It's really incredible stuff.
The bad, which is the cost and the infrastructure, and we'll get into that, and the ugly. And when I say ugly, I mean motion sickness, bugs, and just general discomfort.
So our mission for this deep dive is pretty specific then. We aren't just reading a brochure. We are trying to determine if the nature island is actually worth the hassle and, frankly, the expense in the current travel landscape of 2026.
That's the key question.
Because let's be honest, in 2026, you can go a lot of places very, very easily. Why would you choose the hard one?
And we are going to get into the weeds. We have a realistic budget breakdown that might shock you. Spoiler alert, it is not cheap. And we are going to identify the specific planning traps that can literally ruin an itinerary.
The unforced errors.
Exactly. But let's start with that reality check, the Nature Island branding.
It's a powerful brand. It really is. But we have to look at the context. Between, say, 2024 and 2026, the term eco-travel just exploded.
Right.
It became the marketing darling of the entire hospitality industry.
Oh, absolutely. Every hotel that decided not to wash your towel every day started calling itself an eco-resort.
Right, it's usually just fluff. Look, we use recycled paper for the menu. We're eco-friendly.
Meanwhile, they have a massive diesel generator humming out back, and they're importing plastic water bottles by the pallet.
Exactly, it's performative. But in Dominica, the eco-reality isn't really a marketing choice. It's more of a geological mandate. The source material makes this fascinating point.
Which is?
They literally could not pave over paradise because paradise would slide down the hill.
That is such a vivid image. So it's not that they were morally superior and decided against building high-rises.
It's that the island physically rejected them. Precisely. The terrain is incredibly hostile to standard construction. The mountains are so steep, we are talking near vertical gradients that rise straight out of the sea.
Wow.
And the volcanic activity is so present that mass construction of those sprawling 500-room all-inclusive resorts is just physically impossible. You can't flatten a volcano.
So Dominica didn't choose to be the anti-tourism island.
The island simply refused to be developed in the traditional sense. It forced them down a different path.
Which brings us to the sensory experience. Because if you're scrolling through TikTok or Instagram in 2026, you see these, aesthetic videos, calm bird sounds, someone doing yoga on a wooden deck, mist rolling in.
It looks zen, it looks quiet, it looks like a spa playlist come to life.
Exactly. And that is the social media filter, isn't it? It creates this completely false expectation of tranquility.
100%. The reality, according to travelers on the ground, is sensory overload. It is not quiet. It is loud.
Loud. How can a forest be loud?
It is deafeningly loud. We aren't talking about a gentle breeze in the pines. The insects at night, crickets, cicadas, all kinds of beetles, create a wall of sound that can actually make it hard to have a conversation on a balcony.
No way.
And then you add the tree frogs, the iconic tink-tink frogs, which chirp relentlessly, sometimes even during the day.
So there's no silence.
Ever.
Zero silence. And then you add the weather. The heavy rain in Dominica isn't a polite little drizzle, it's a tropical deluge. It just hammers on the tin roofs, and almost every roof is tin. So it sounds like you're sitting inside a drum. And then there's this smell. You mentioned that.
The smell, yeah. It's a volcanic island, so you have the faint smell of sulfur wafting from the vents, mixed with the very strong smell of wet earth and decaying vegetation. It's raw, primal.
The greenery is described as aggressive in one of the reports.
Aggressive is the perfect word. It's not manicured gardens. It's vines trying to consume the buildings. If you stand still for too long, something will probably start growing on you.
I think that's a huge disconnect for people. They have this idea of a digital nomad paradise. I'll go work remotely from a rainforest cabin, take a few Zoom calls, it'll look cool.
And that is a recipe for absolute disaster in Dominica. The sources are very, very clear. This is not a digital nomad hub. It is a disconnect hub.
What's the difference?
Well, the power grids are fragile. The island relies on a mix of hydro and diesel, and storms knock the lines down constantly. You might lose electricity for hours at a time. And the internet.
Let me guess. Spotty.
If you are in the mountains, which is where you want to be for the views, the dense cloud cover can knock out even the best satellite internet setups. So if you're trying to take a Zoom call with your boss in New York, playing it cool like you're in a home office.
You're playing a dangerous game.
A very dangerous game. You're setting yourself up for failure. The whole expectation needs to shift. You don't go there to answer emails by the pool. You go there to feel small.
To feel small.
Yeah. You go there to realize that nature is bigger and louder than you are, and it really does not care about your quarterly review.
And speaking of pools, or rather beaches, we need to manage some expectations here. Talk about the anti-Tulum aesthetic. Because when people hear Caribbean, they have a very specific color palette in mind.
Cyan blue water, white powder sand. That is the Caribbean cliche for sure. And this is a crucial expectation setter. If you are expecting white sand, turquoise calm water, and beach clubs with DJs, do not go to Dominica.
So what are the beaches like?
The beaches are black or gray volcanic sand.
Which means they get hot, right?
Incredibly hot. Black sand absorbs heat like you wouldn't believe. You can burn the soles of your feet just walking from your towel to the water.
And the water itself isn't exactly a swimming pool either. The sources mentioned the Atlantic side specifically.
On the Atlantic side, the water is described as violent. It is unswimmable. The currents are incredibly strong. The waves are choppy. You will get swept out.
And the Caribbean side?
The Caribbean side is calmer, but it's often very rocky. The overarching theme from the source material is really about physical comfort. If you are not willing to get wet, muddy, sweaty, and have sand in places you didn't know sand could go, you are going to be absolutely miserable.
It sounds like an endurance test.
In a way, it is, but that's the filter. That's what keeps the mass tourism away. If it were easy, there would be a Margaritaville there by now.
Let's talk about that keeping people away aspect, because the barrier to entry starts before you even set foot on the island. Let's get into the logistics of arrival.
Yeah.
Because you can't just fly a 747 direct from London into Dominica.
No. No direct flights from the US or Europe. That is the very first hurdle. You are landing at Douglas Charles Airport. It used to be called Melville Hall, but the name change hasn't changed the geography.
And the sources describe the approach as weaving through mountains. That doesn't sound like a standard landing procedure.
It is absolutely not a straight-in landing like at JFK or Heathrow. You are typically on a small prop plane, an ATR or a Cessna, coming in from Barbados or Antigua.
An inter-island hopper.
Exactly. And the winds coming off the mountains create significant turbulence. The plane is bouncing. It is not for nervous flyers. It's a thrill ride that basically signals, okay, the adventure has begun.
So you survive the landing, you peel your fingers off the armrests, you get your bag, you walk out of the tiny airport, and then you meet the taxi mafia.
Now, that's what locals and frequent travelers call it, and honestly, the name kind of fits the power dynamic. In 2026, there is still no reliable Uber or Lyft. There is no rideshare app to save you. You are a captive audience.
And the airport is nowhere near the capital, right? That seems to be a major planning failure for first-timers.
That's the geography problem. The airport is on the northeast coast because that was the only flat-ish piece of land they could find to build a runway.
Right.
The capital, Roseau, is on the southwest coast. That is a 90-minute drive. The other main town, Portsmouth, is about 60 minutes away. You have to negotiate with the driver immediately upon exiting that building.
And let's visualize this drive, because 90 minutes on a highway is one thing. This is not a highway.
No. This is 90 minutes of hairpin turns through the Central Forest Reserve. You leave the airport, and for the first 10 minutes you think, okay, this is fine, but then you hit the mountains. The road narrows, the canopy closes in. We're talking ferns the size of minivans brushing against the side of the taxi. And the turns aren't just curves, they are intense switchbacks. You are constantly accelerating hard and then braking hard.
The sources describe it as a rhythm of nausea.
It's a physical endurance test before you even check into your hotel. And because most flights land late afternoon or evening, it's getting dark. You can't see the drop-offs. You can only feel the gravity pulling you sideways in your seat. If you get carsick, this drive will break you.
But let's say you survive the drive. You get to your accommodation. What are those first impressions of the environment once the car engine finally cuts?
The sources highlight the immediate shift. The first thing you notice is what's missing. No traffic noise.
Just silence.
Not silence, the opposite. It's replaced by the sound of the wind, the sound of rushing rivers. Dominica claims to have 365 of them, one for every day of the year, and that ever-present smell of wet earth and sulfur.
But there's also an immediate danger that unsuspecting travelers face within, 20 minutes of sunset?
Let me guess. The bugs.
The travelers become food. If you don't have bug spray on, immediately the mosquitoes, and specifically the no-see-ums, these tiny sandflies, will eat you alive. It's the tax you pay for being in the jungle.
Speaking of tax, let's pivot to the financial side of things. Because one of the biggest misconceptions about rugged or developing destinations is that they are cheap.
Right. People think, oh, it's not a luxury island, so my dollar will go far.
And that is a massive, massive misconception with Dominica in 2026. If you go in thinking your money will stretch like it does in, say, Southeast Asia, you are going to run out of cash on day 3.
So we need to look at the economic context. The currency is the East Caribbean dollar, the XCD.
Right, which is pegged to the USD at about 2.7 to 1. But the real issue is what the sources call the import tax reality.
Why is that such a huge factor here?
Because Dominica produces very little in terms of manufactured goods. They grow amazing fruit and vegetables, but pretty much everything else, processed food, electronics, cars, gasoline, has to be shipped in.
And the logistics are tough.
The logistics are really tough. Dominica doesn't have a massive deep-water port infrastructure like Jamaica or Puerto Rico. Shipping is expensive, so almost anything manufactured has this high inflation attached to it.
Okay, so let's break down the accommodation tiers. I think a lot of backpackers would assume they can find, a $20 hostel.
And they would be completely wrong. The source material is explicit. There are no $20 hostels. They simply do not exist. The infrastructure for cheap mass tourism just isn't there.
So what's the entry level? What's the cheapest you can do?
The budget or backpacker tier is running about $60 to $90 per night.
And for that, you're getting...
For that, you're looking at glamping tents or a very basic guest house. You are not getting a hotel room for that price. You're getting a bed, maybe a fan, and probably a shared bathroom.
That's a steep entry point for a backpacker.
It really is. Then you move up to mid-range, which is about $150 to $250 a night. These are the classic eco cottages.
Okay.
And it's important to note, at this price point, you often still do not have air conditioning. You are reliant on the breeze and the architectural design of the building to stay cool.
Wait, $250 a night and no AC? That's going to be a hard sell for a lot of people from, say, Texas.
That's the eco premium. You are paying for the location, the view, and the privacy, not the climate control. And then you have the high end.
This is where it gets crazy.
This is where Dominica has really carved out a niche. Places like Secret Bay or Jungle Bay, we're talking 800 to 1,500 US dollars per night.
Wow.
These are ultra-luxury eco-resorts with private plunge pools, massive privacy, and very high-end service.
Okay, so you've paid for your bed, now you want to actually do things.
Yeah.
What about the trip focus costs, the activities?
This is where the budget really starts to swell. Let's take whale watching. This isn't a $20 booze cruise. You're looking at $80 to $120 per person.
And that's for a seat on a small boat.
Exactly. A small boat or a research vessel, which is honestly the way you want to do it.
And hiking. I thought hiking was supposed to be free. It's nature.
Not all of it.
Yeah.
The Watucubuli National Trail is the big draw. It runs the entire length of the island. A pass for the whole trail is about $120. Or you can buy segment passes for $40.
And for the big ticket hike, the Boiling Lake, a guide is effectively mandatory.
Mandatory, like legally.
Practically mandatory for safety. The trail is confusing and it's dangerous. A guide will cost you another $60 to $100 depending on your group size. So a free hike becomes a $100 day very, very quickly.
Okay, so we've got housing, we've got activities. What about just staying alive? Food and transport.
Food is a tale of two cities. If you eat street food, what they call bakes, which is fried dough, or roadside barbecue chicken, you can get by on $10 to $15 a day.
And it's delicious.
Oh, it's delicious, but it's basic. If you want to sit down at a restaurant, you're suddenly paying $50 to $80 per person per day.
That is a huge jump.
But the real budget killer, the one that blindsides everyone, is transport.
Why is it so expensive?
Rental cars. Specifically the right kind of rental car. You're looking at $70 to $90 a day, plus a local license fee. And then gas is around $7 a gallon.
$7 a gallon.
And if you decide not to drive and take taxis instead, an airport transfer is $80 one way.
So let's synthesize this. If I'm a scrappy backpacker trying to do this on the cheap, what's my daily burn rate?
Even being as scrappy as possible, eating street food, doing mostly free hiking, maybe splitting a cheap rental, you are still looking at $110 per day, per person.
$110 a day for scrappy. Wow. That puts it way out of range for the traditional Southeast Asia backpacker crowd.
It filters the demographic. If you're mid-range, nice cottage, a car, one paid activity, you're at about $275 a day.
And the luxury traveler.
The luxury traveler is easily spending $1,200 plus per day.
So the verdict on cost is, this is not a budget destination, full stop.
No. You get a high value for uniqueness, but a low value for infrastructure. You are paying a premium for the difficulty of being there.
Okay, so we've scared off the people looking for a cheap beach week. For those who are still listening who are thinking, I can handle this, I want the adventure, we need to talk about planning. Because the sources identify 3 specific planning tracks.
These are the unforced errors.
Exactly. Trap number 1, the day tripper mentality.
I can see the logic here. You're staying in Guadeloupe or Martinique, you see Dominica on the map, and you think, hey, I'll just pop over for the day on the ferry.
Fatal error. Let's just walk through the timeline on that. The ferry itself takes over 2 hours.
Okay.
Customs and immigration can take another full hour. It's slow.
Yeah.
By the time you actually get out of the port, you have maybe 4 hours on the island before you have to turn around and go back.
And because the roads are so slow, you can't get anywhere.
You can't get anywhere. You end up seeing the port and maybe one nearby waterfall, and then you have to leave. It's a complete waste of money and time. The fix is a minimum 5-night stay. You simply cannot see this island in a rush.
The roads just won't let you.
The roads won't let you.
Okay, trap number 2. And this is the one I really want to drill into because it sounds like a nightmare waiting to happen. Rental car roulette.
This is the classic mistake. Someone goes on Expedia or whatever booking site, sees a standard sedan like a Toyota Corolla for $50 a day, and then a 4x4 for $80. They think, I'll save the $30, the main roads are paved, how bad can it be?
But the main roads are paved, right? So what's the issue?
The issue isn't the highway. The issue is the last mile. The driveways to the eco-lodges, the little roads to the trailheads. They are steep, gravel, rutted tracks. We are talking about breakover angles.
Right.
If you rent a standard sedan, you will bottom out. You will rip the oil pan right off your car trying to get up the driveway to your hotel.
So you're stuck at the bottom of the hill with a broken car and your luggage.
Exactly. The fix is mandatory. You need a high-clearance 4x4. The sources say specifically the Suzuki Jimny is the gold standard on the island.
Why that car?
It's small, it's light, and it can climb anything. If you show up in anything lower to the ground, you might not even get to your bed for the night.
And there's a skill check here, too. It's not just about having the right car.
Oh, a huge skill check. Can you drive a manual transmission? Can you do it on the left side of the road? Can you do it while dodging goats and potholes on a cliff edge with no guardrails?
If the answer to any of those is no,
Do not rent a car. Hire a driver. It will save your trip and possibly your marriage.
solid advice.
Yes.
Okay, trap number 3, the Sunday shutdown.
This catches people out every single time. Dominica is a deeply religious island. On Sundays, the capital, Roseau, is a ghost town.
What do you mean, ghost town?
Shops are closed, most restaurants are closed, even the gas stations close early.
So imagine this scenario. You arrive on a Sunday, you're hungry, your rental car is low on gas.
You are in serious trouble. You will find nothing open. You will be eating the crackers in your carry-on for dinner. The fix is to plan Sundays as static days. Go to a beach, go on a hike, but have your food pre-packed. Do not rely on logistics on a Sunday.
Okay, we've covered the warnings, we've covered the costs, we've covered the traps. Let's talk about the payoff. Why do people go through all of this? Why spend $1,200 a day to get muddy? What are the high-value experiences?
There are 2 peaks described in the source material, the spiritual peak and the physical peak.
Let's start with the spiritual. The sperm whales.
This is this is unique. Dominica is the only place in the Caribbean and one of the few places in the world with a resident year-round population of sperm whales.
Why there? What's so special about the water off Dominica?
It's the bathymetry, the shape of the ocean floor. The deep water trench, where the whales hunt for squid, drops off right next to the coast. So the whales can feed in the deep, but stay close to shore.
And the experience isn't like SeaWorld. It's not a show.
Oh, it's the farthest thing from it. The description in the source is breathtaking. You go out on these small boats. When they find a spot where they think the whales are, they cut the engines. Complete silence. Then they drop a hydrophone, an underwater microphone, into the water.
And what do you hear?
Click, click, click. It's described as sounding like a hammer hitting concrete but underwater. That is the sound of the whales hunting in the deep. It's their echolocation. And this massive percussive sound vibrates right through the hull of the boat.
That gives me chills just thinking about it.
And then the encounter. It's slow, it's quiet, you aren't chasing them, you are just floating near these giants. The source calls it a connection with giants under your feet, but, and this is a big but, practical advice, take motion sickness patches.
Why is that so crucial?
Because you were just bobbing in the Atlantic swell with the engine off for a long time. Even tough sailors get green.
Okay, that's the spiritual. Now the physical peak.
Yeah.
The Boiling Lake hike.
This is a hike through a place called the Valley of Desolation, and that name is 100% accurate. It looks like Mars, steam vents hissing, gray mud bubbling, sulfur everywhere. It is a hostile alien environment.
And there's a real danger factor here that sounds terrifying.
There is. You have to be incredibly careful where you step. The ground can look hard, but it's actually just a thin crust over boiling mud.
Oh no.
One source described a hiker stepping through and sinking knee-deep in boiling mud. It melted their boot, gave them serious burns. This isn't a theme park, there are no safety rails.
Yikes.
But the destination. The boiling lake itself is a flooded fumarole. It's 200 feet across, and the water is in a constant rolling boil. It's not bubbling like a jacuzzi, it's boiling like a giant pot on a stove. It is a display of raw, terrifying earth power.
And for this, you need the right gear. Let's talk shoes. This is important.
Absolutely. The clay on that trail is called laterite. It's an orange-red clay that, when it gets wet, turns into pure grease. Hiking sandals, your Chacos or Tevas will fail here. You will slide right out of them, where the suction from the mud will pull them right off your feet.
So what do you need?
You need boots. Real hiking boots with ankle support and deep lugs, no exceptions.
So those are the highs. But even in a place this intense, there are disappointments. What should people be wary of?
2 main things, according to the reports. First, cruise ship crowds.
Wait, I thought we said this wasn't a mass tourism island.
It isn't generally, but when a megaship docks in Roseau, Thousands of people pour out for their pre-booked day excursions, and they all go to the same places.
The easiest spots to get to.
The easiest, most accessible spots like Emerald Pool or Trafalgar Falls. The source describes Emerald Pool turning into human soup with hundreds of orange life vests just bobbing in the water.
That sounds miserable. You hike all that way for a serene nature experience, and you get a crowded public pool vibe.
Exactly. The strategy is to check the cruise ship schedule online before you go. If a ship is in port, go deep into the interior or head far north. Stay away from the easy spots.
And the second disappointment.
Island time service. It's a cliche, but it's real. Waiting 2 hours for your food at a restaurant isn't charming or cute when you are starving and have a hike planned for the afternoon.
Right.
You have to adjust your internal clock. If you bring your New York City I need it now energy, you will just be frustrated the whole time.
Let's talk about safety. We mentioned the bugs and the treacherous roads, but what about crime? Human-to-human safety.
This is the good news. Violent crime against tourists is statistically very, very low. The island feels very safe in terms of human interaction.
The sources mentioned the village vibe. What's that?
It's this sense of high visibility. Everyone knows everyone, and locals greet you. There's a cultural rule. If someone says good morning or good afternoon, you say it back. Failing to reply is considered extremely rude.
You're a guest in their village.
You are a guest, so the real risks aren't muggings.
The real risks are environmental.
Yes, flash floods are a major, major danger. It can be perfectly sunny where you are, but raining hard up in the mountains, and suddenly the river in the gorge you're swimming in rises 10 feet in a minute.
Wow.
T2 Gorge is famous for this. If a guide says, "We have to go," you go. You don't ask why.
And the roads again. Something about gutters.
Specifically, the drainage ditches. The roads have these deep concrete channels on the edges to handle the massive amounts of rainfall. If you're not paying attention and drop a wheel into one,
You're stuck.
you are stuck. Game over. You're going to need a tow truck, and that's not coming quickly.
There's also a note here about the damp factor,
Right.
which sounds unpleasant.
It's the tropics. The humidity is pretty much 100% all the time. Clothes never fully dry, towels never fully dry. You just have to embrace being slightly damp for the entire trip.
So pack quick, dry fabrics.
Yes, cotton is your enemy. It will get wet and stay wet.
Any scams to watch out for?
Very minor. The only one really noted is the bum boats in Portsmouth. These are guys in small boats who row out to the yachts in the harbor to sell services or barbecue. They can be a little pushy.
And the fix.
Simple. Agree on a price for everything beforehand.
Okay, so let's look at alternatives.
Mm.
Maybe someone's been listening to this and thinking, this sounds amazing, but maybe just a little too hard for me. Where else should they look?
If you want the light version of this experience, the sources suggest Grenada.
Why Grenada?
It has the lush rainforests and the beautiful waterfalls, but it also has world-class white sand beaches like Grand Anse. It has a proper international airport with much easier logistics. It's softer. You lose some of that raw Jurassic feel, but you gain a ton of comfort.
Okay, what if the main draw for someone is wildlife? Because Dominica doesn't have monkeys or sloths, right?
Correct. Dominica has no large native land mammals. It's mostly birds, insects, and lizards. If you want to see monkeys, sloths, tapirs, the place to go is the Osa Peninsula in Costa Rica.
And that's a similar vibe.
A very similar rugged vibe. Dirt roads, remote jungle lodges, but with a massive amount of visible wildlife.
And there's a combo itinerary suggested that I think is brilliant.
The Antigua and Dominica combo. This is for the traveler who wants it all and has the time and budget.
How does it work?
You fly into Antigua for 4 days. You get your luxury fix, the white sand beaches, the cocktails, the easy living. Then you take the short hop over to Dominica for 5 days of rugged adventure, mud, and hiking.
Yeah.
Then you fly back to Antigua for a night to wash the mud off, relax, and have a nice dinner before you fly home.
That sounds perfect. You get the struggle and the reward all in one trip.
It perfectly balances the friction with the relaxation.
So let's wrap this all up with the verdict. Who is Dominica actually for in 2026? Let's run the matrix assessment from the reports.
Okay, let's do it. First up, the backpacker.
What's the verdict?
The verdict is yes, but with a major warning. The hiking is world-class and mostly free, which is great. But it is lonely. There is no party scene. If you're a backpacker looking to meet people and socialize, this is not the place.
Got it. Next, the mid-range couple.
Hard. Yes. This is a bonding experience. Surviving the drives, hiking to the waterfalls together, it's a memory maker. The warning. You have to rent the right car, the Jimny, and have no expectation of nightlife. Your nightlife is listening to the frogs.
Okay. The family.
This one is conditional. If you have kids under 10, absolutely not. No. Too much time in the car, the hiking is too hard, the swimming is generally unsafe. It would be a nightmare for everyone.
But for older kids?
But if you have teenagers, yes, it's an adventure playground. They can do canyoning, jump off waterfalls. It will get them off their phones because the phones probably won't work anyway.
And finally, the luxury traveler.
This is a yes, but only if you are willing to redefine luxury. If luxury to you means marble lobbies and butler service on a white sand beach, then no. But if luxury means ultimate privacy, a stunning villa on a cliff, and being totally immersed in nature like at a place like Secret Bay, then absolutely yes, it's a different kind of luxury.
So what's the final analysis here? The takeaway?
It's about the currency of your experience. In 2026, anyone can buy comfort. You can get a suite at the Four Seasons in Miami, and it's perfect and lovely, but it's also kind of forgettable. Dominica offers high-friction travel.
High friction.
You are paying with your sweat and your patience, but what you buy with that currency is a story that no one else at the dinner party has. The value proposition is a high return on investment for memories and a low return on investment for comfort.
And there's an urgency to it.
A real urgency. The sources all say, go before the international airport gets bigger.
It's a place that touches the soul because it hasn't sold it yet.
That's the perfect way to put it.
I want to leave our listeners with a final thought from the source material. It reflects on this concept we've been talking about, this idea of friction in travel. We live in a world that is constantly, relentlessly optimizing for ease.
Apps for everything, seamless transfers, comfort at every single turn.
And Dominica offers the exact opposite. It offers friction. It offers mud and rain and difficult roads and language barriers and sweat.
And the question the material poses is this. Are we losing the ability to be truly moved by a place because we refuse to struggle for it anymore?
When you hike for hours to get to the boiling lake, or when you sit in total silence on a boat just waiting for a whale.
You earn that experience. And because you earned it, it sticks with you in a way that an easy experience never can.
So pack your rain gear, download your offline maps.
And go listen to the whales.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you on the next one.